Hey everybody and welcome back. In this video I'm going to start with I suppose this could become a Let's Code season, but I'm going to start planning a new game. And it's going to be more of a statistics management game, but with an emphasis on being more engaging and more fun than the standard statistic management game kind of formula. So what I want to do is just kind of plan out, mind map the game and its functions here, so that when I get to coding I kind of have a ballpark idea of what I'm aiming for. So that's kind of what I'm working through today, and I thought I'd include you in the process, just kind of give you an idea of what I do before I actually start coding and rendering. So I've got in my head the first thing I want to do is that the player has action points, and every action costs some points, whether that's one action point or multiple action points. I'll cross that bridge nearer the time. Options could be a fixed number of points, so like maybe for example 5 each day, and then every action costs 1 point, so you can only do 5 things each day before you have to roll onto the next day. Or have like 100 action points and each action costs a different number depending on how strenuous that activity is. So if it's like making a phone call, it might cost 5 points. If it's walking to the supermarket, maybe 20 points, whatever, you know. So it's an action point system. And what I do want is, once action points run out, day ends. And then basically what will happen is you have to hit next day, and then overnight simulated events happen. So when you hit next, the game progresses. It does all of the calculating that it needs to do. So your action points will replenish. Anything that you might have set in motion will progress, so on and so forth. So that's that. Obviously the player will have a cash amount, which also will we'll delete that. Player has cash amount. Some actions also cost cash. So for example, going to the store will cost you money. Buying assets will cost you money. So the game, I'm trying not to give too much away about the actual game idea I've got, because I want that to kind of be something that you'll find out when you actually see the game and you play it. So player has a site with rooms. New rooms can be added. Each room has what's the word I'm thinking of? Has a grade which can be improved by buying new decorations. And equipment. Yeah, so you can buy, player can buy personal equipment to improve certain stats. Once I've finished doing this mind mapping brainstorming session, what I will then do is I will go into more of a pseudo code kind of place where I might do that in another video as well, where I start thinking about how I'm actually going to calculate the output of each function. Essentially what's going to happen is the player is going to be in charge of a business which creates something. The quality of that something will depend on what equipment is available, and obviously what equipment and skills the player actually has, and these things can all be upgraded. And obviously if the product is constantly the same, so for example if you have one room with only one set of equipment in it, the customers will get bored of that particular product, so you need to keep mixing it up, you need to improve the quality, so on and so forth. So that's kind of where I'm going. But in order to make it more of a game, you have to limit the number of things that a player can do every day before the game progresses and does its thinking. Because if it were just a case of spending all of your time, you could bang everything out in the first day and then just hit run, and then it will do all of the thinking. There'd be no gameplay element to it. This is a statistics management game in essence, so you have to give the game a chance to actually change things and alter them. So yeah, and obviously player can level up certain skills and stats to increase action points. What other stats am I necessarily going to have? I suppose I could have hit points just in case that I had a combat element. Charm or charisma. What else? Intelligence, business, skills, marketing skills, stuff like that. That's where we're roughly going with that idea. Obviously to improve the sales of the product. And products can also include marketing packages and legal fees, all sorts of interesting stuff. I'm kind of making this up as I go along because I'm trying to brainstorm how. I've got a rough idea of the type of game I want to make and what I want the core system, the core gameplay elements to be, but this is where we decide on extra things that we're going to throw in, because a well fleshed out idea doesn't necessarily always mean that it's going to be a full and engaging game. So we have to add other things, we have to contemplate what the player is going to do, what the player is going to be, because as I've learned the hard way, making the player work for the reward is great, but if it's all grind and no carrot, very quickly they get bored and start complaining. Some people enjoy the grind, hence why games like World of Warcraft are so popular, but you have to give them some kind of reward, some feeling of progress, otherwise they just never get, they never get the satisfaction that they're looking for. So yeah, so player can hire people with different skills. Their performance in the job will depend on their skills / stats and the player's relationship with them and how much they get paid. So yeah, so not only do you have to manage them from a business point of view, but you also kind of have to manage your relationship with them and develop that so that they give you a better performance in their role, which is good. Different types of NPCs. So you'll get say different areas of different skill sets, like engineers, salespeople, so on. So you need to hire different types. And again, you need to train them, so staff can be trained to improve stats, whilst training cannot be used for work. So if they're in training, they can't actually be being productive elsewhere. So you kind of have to balance training your staff with getting them to do the job. And again, that just adds a bit more of a realistic kind of feel to it. Yep, that's good. What else do we need? Product ratings to compete with other firms. So let's say every 30 days you get a rating to see how you're getting on, how your products stack up against other people's. And obviously the aim is to get to be number one and to earn lots of money. Now, how do we manifest the positive side? So we've talked a lot about the grinding and stuff, but what's the output going to be in order for there to be some semblance of reward? And I suppose the best thing to do is to have output CGs which correspond to level and quality of product. Yeah. So basically the images that get displayed on the screen will change and improve based on the quality of the product. I think that's probably the safest way of doing this. And so this is a kind of a skeleton which needs to be fleshed out in another sort of pass of the planning. This is the initial plan, and then I'll go through it again and I'll start thinking about how I'm going to achieve each thing and start applying some pseudocode, at which point I can then decide whether or not all of these things are going to be achievable in any given permutation of game engine. If I don't use Ren'Py, if I use something else, because obviously some things are a lot easier in other languages, but the aim is to try and get this achieved in Ren'Py so that you guys can have a look at the code and understand what's going on. But either way, that's the kind of a skeleton. A fleshed out skeleton will be the next stage. But I hope you sort of gain some kind of insight into how I start the planning for a game in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below anyway, and I will see you in the next one. Until then, take care of yourselves, guys. Bye bye.